Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another thrilling episode of Zooster by Night. Tonight, we're going to peek in as Legate Seth begins his training to shed his humanity, as Brother Kruger is going to indoctrinate him in the methods of the path of night to become truly monstrous. So the instructions when Seth reached out to Brother Kruger on where to meet was to venture up to Norlock at the charred ruins of a grand church. And part of town that Seth has passed through from the south end up to his old domain stomping grounds in Trenton and Blackgate, but one that he's not very familiar with. So Seth shall approach obfuscated to avoid, hopefully, detection from anyone that may be there, as it is starting to get a little bit close to the part of the city that is being monitored at the very least by invaders, and follows the instructions on where to find this charred church. He can tell that it was once quite the building, but a devastating fire has left it the shadow of its former grandeur.
The church has collapsed after the fire. The roof came crashing down, but the rubble has by now been cleared. A new construction would have started, renewing the church, but for some reason the construction company didn't go through with it. Uh, it's a husk, it's a shell. The walls are still there, but most of it is gone. There you can still see when you enter that where the pews were, and the altar is still there. And on the altar is, well, what's left of the altar is there. When Seth enters, he will see a figure sitting on the ground.
Okay, Seth will shed his obfuscate as he enters the building, and he will slowly and slightly cautiously approach Brother Kruger, as he's not begun any kind of path indoctrination before, but he's heard stories of wildly different methods of testing prospective subjects, so he's not quite sure what he's stepping into this evening.
And Kruger gets up. He's wearing his old priest outfit, his old priest robes, and he's at the moment he's not wearing the mask. Though if Seth would look around, he would see the mask and the long coat and the hat not far away. And Kruger just turns towards Seth with his arms in front of him. Seth,
Brother Kruger.
and Kruger just looking at Seth, completely silently, waiting for a reaction.
There'll be a bit of a pause as the two Canaanites stare at each other, expecting for some response to the other, and after a few minutes, Seth is starting to second guess what exactly he is supposed to do to engage this. Um, Brother Kruger. He repeats again after a few minutes. I am ready to learn more about my beast with you.
What do you know about the path of the night?
My understanding from what little I've had explained is it's a holy calling to engage oneself in the true nature of being a Cainite, to fulfill our destiny as the tempters and tormentors of reality.
We will start today by talking. There will be tests later, but we will start by this talking. How is your faith?
My faith, I believe, is still quite strong. I was a man of faith prior to my rebirth. My
And at
devotion
that
has,
point, Kruger smiles.
uh, my focus of my faith has shifted to be focused a lot on my faith in Cain, my faith in his return, my faith in what he expects of us as his sword. And I know that we need to be ready to strike at our enemies for the time that he uses us to exact punishment upon his errant grandchilder.
Hmm. You still believe in God?
I think it's difficult. I find it difficult to understand how a Cainite could not believe in God, given the wondrous nature of ourselves as well as the truths about where we came from.
I remember when I became a Canaanite. My faith in the existence of God, well, it was no longer faith, it was I have had more or less proof. Who could ever look at this face in the mirror and not believe in a higher power? But I found that I started to doubt things that were told to me about God when I was still mortal. How could a good, how could a God who is good ever allow such monsters to exist? Have you ever wondered about that?
Um, the idea has taken some of my attention over the years. I see it as being no different than similar questions that mortals ask about how could God create hell? How could God allow there to be wickedness in the world? Is these are methods of punishing those that disobey him as well as testing those who claim to follow him,
Good,
like he did with Job, like he did with the 10 plagues on Egypt.
good. Well, what you need to understand is that God is not good. God is not evil. God is neither in between. God is above good and evil. God decides what is good, what is evil. God creates the rules. Human morality cannot apply to God. Any attempt to do so is doomed to failure. God is simply above all this. And God created humans and created Cainites with different intentions. Humans are supposed to be good. They're supposed to be kind to each other. They're supposed to help each other. Cainites, well, let's put it this way. If God wanted Cainites to be good, He wouldn't have made us into blood-sucking creatures of the night. Our very nature suggests that God wants us to be the night. God wants us to be evil. God wants us to be darkness. Do you
That
understand?
make that makes sense. I mean, he doesn't expect the fish to fly or climb a tree. It's got fins, it's got gills. We have fangs, we have a need for mortal blood. We have the instincts of the beast to rely upon.
Yes. It, there are many lessons to be learned if you want to advance yourself on the path of light. The most important one, the most fundamental one is to realize that you cannot apply human moral values to a Cainite's existence. They simply do not make sense. In fact, one might even go as far as to say that a Cainite, in order to be moral, it should do the exact opposite of what would be moral in a mortal. Morality is not, the way I've come to see it, is not doing good, it's doing what God expects us to do. Moral behavior is to do what God needs us to do, what He wants us to do, what is our purpose. Immoral behavior is to defy God's will. So, if I go out and I break into a house and I cut someone's face off, that is good. It's moral behavior because that is what my purpose is. If a human did that, it would be highly immoral. It would be very sinful. It would be evil. Because mortals, humans, they're supposed to be good. God wants them to be good, to help each other, to be kind, to be selfless. God wants us to be selfish, to be cruel, to inflict pain, fear, and suffering. And Kruger stops talking, just looking at Seth to see
Seth
his
is kind
reaction.
of Seth is kind of nodding as you've been saying this, and then at the pause he engages. But should there not be some purpose to some acts? Like random, wouldn't random acts of
The
what
purpose,
humans would define as immoral behavior, would that not just be spiritual masturbation?
the purpose is there, but the first stage is to let go of human values. And for this means giving in to the beast for some time. till, until you reach a point where you can shed the last remnants of your human morality and take on a new moral code. But yes, there is a higher purpose. You could say that we are the darkness that makes the light shine brighter. We test people, we torment people. If they fall, they failed. Hell awaits them, endless suffering. Those that resist, that maintain the goodness despite everything we do, it makes their place in heaven that much more deserved.
That makes sense.
And Cain is the first and greatest tormentor. I've been thinking about this, and I've been noticing some similarities to what Cain is to Cainites and what Jesus Christ is to humans. It's interesting when you think about it. Cain was, in a manner of speaking, sired by God, was he not?
Well, yes, because, well,
Three
I haven't.
angels came to Cain, each one bearing another curse.
That is true.
So Cain was sired without exchange of bodily fluid. Mm. And it's interesting to know the parallel with Jesus, who was conceived without exchange of bodily fluids.
That is true as well.
And so it is fitting that we Cainites, we place a similar importance on Cain than humans do on the Lord Jesus Christ. Of course, we should not, we should take special care not to say that Cain is the vampire Jesus. But there are certain parallels, and his importance in our lives, well, and lives, is similar to the importance that Jesus should hold in the lives of humans.
And we can learn from his words and his life,
And
just
his
as a
example,
mortal would be able to learn from the words and life of Christ.
exactly. That's why the Book of Knowledge is important. Well, it's important for other reasons, but this is one of the ways in which the Book of Knowledge is important, because there we can read about Cain, we can read about his actions, what he was doing, and we can use the knowledge as an example how to lead our own lives. Much like a Christian uses the Bible and stories of Jesus Christ as an example how to lead their own lives.
Do you possess any fragments of the book yourself?
I do.
It is much harder to find copies of the Book of Nod than just going to a hotel and checking the nightstand.
It is. I received more fragments. Well, I received my first fragments from my mentor, the late Archbishop Kimberly Merriweather, although at that time she was only a bishop.
I was curious who had inducted you, brother, as my understanding is that you've been the sole follower of the Path of Night.
Well, I've been for the past few months, unless someone's suspicions about a certain cardinal are true.
There have been some insights that I have had on the current Archbishop, Cardinal Rishi, but it's not really something that is an open conversation for any instances that I've interacted with him.
Yes, and walking up to a cardinal and asking him what path he follows is an example of rude behavior. And we do
Yes,
not
for
want
sure.
to be rude in front of the cardinal.
No, definitely not.
And the reason why we don't want to do that is because it's stupid and likely to get us hurt.
Especially if he is a member of the Path of Night.
Mm. Although another thing that the path preaches is that all men are equal under God, and so are all Canaanites. It
But there's
makes it
different,
it makes it somewhat challenging at times when faced with someone who has a much higher level of authority in the sect.
yeah, there's varying levels of equality, as I've had others explain.
The most important thing is not to accept other people's superiority over you. Good luck.
Well, to be able to really make the transition from humanity to the true darkness, I think takes a certain caliber of individual that there shouldn't be too much superiority out there for those of you that have successfully made the transition.
I like the way you're thinking. So, the first thing you need to learn is that never regret anything. Never regret what you've done. Never feel remorse for your actions. Your purpose in this world is to spread pain and fear, to torment people for their own good, ultimately. The second tenet is do not accept superiority of anyone other than God and Cain. I suppose Cain being the first and foremost among our kind, we might be able to make an exception. The third thing you need to do is that do not be selfless. Do not help people without getting anything in return. Selflessness is a very good trait in a human. It's not what a canine should be. The fourth thing you'll need to endeavor is not to take the life of mortals. Life and death should be in the hands of God. I
Well,
understand this may cause a certain amount of friction with the bishop overseeing your pack.
yes. So far, those points are fairly much fall in line with my current view on matters. So just having to take them to the next degree, I will have to make sure that the second point, not acknowledging the superiority of another, will help me in overcoming any friction involved with having to avoid the death of mortals.
Do keep in mind the Code of Milan while you're at it.
Well, yes,
It is
because,
not always an easy path to follow.
well, it would be in one's best interests, selfish interests, to ensure that the code is being upheld for longevity, if nothing else.
However you manage it, I'm just pointing out potential points of potential challenges. What I want you to do is obtain whatever you can of the Book of Nod. Bishop Kashrimi will probably be able to help you. And he is inclined to help people freely. I could provide you copies of my copies, but then you'd have to do something for me. He will just give them to you freely.
And how does one reconcile that we have a Canaanite who is so obviously not selfish and not fulfilling their destiny?
I will leave you to figure that out for yourself.
Very well. Then I
So
will.
I want you to gather as much of the Book of Nod as you can. I want you to study it. I want you to study the Bible, compare it to the Book of Nod, deepen your understanding of our history and how it reflects on the human perspective. And I want you to, when you walk around and you look for prey, I want you to start see, being a little bit selective, perhaps. Look for people who sinned against God. They deserve your attention more than most.
Okay.
But do not try too hard to redeem them. You are not a redeemer. You are an instrument of punishment. Do not take their lives if you can help it.
Well, I have found since some of the extracurricular activities that my bishop has led us in, and the complications with the affliction, that has been a little bit more difficult, but I will make a concerted effort in trying to spare my prey.
Well, no one said you can't make them wish they were dead. I've found that if you take a person's eyes, their tongue, and their hands, they, they are usually useless as a witness. It takes more effort than just putting a bullet in their brain, but it is more in line with the path. And it demonstrates how people, well, it may not necessarily be so much in their interest to be spared. Spare them, but don't spare them.
When they do finally meet their end, their destination will be that much more sweeter.
Depends what destination they earn themselves. We get a once you have a human in your grasp, torment him, make them fear, make them feel pain. Sooner or later, their eyes will turn upwards, and that is the sweetest moment of all. Well, actually, well, that's the sweetest moment of the whole procedure of tormenting. I have experienced some moments that were sweeter yet, but I'm getting carried away.
All right, brother. Very well. I will incorporate these findings, and I will seek out Professor Kashrimi for some copies of the good book for me to study and meditate on.
Good. How are the fireflies otherwise?
Well, we are still tracking down half of the pack.
What? What happened?
Yes. Um, Alistair and Evelyn were taken away by the police at the when there was a raid. That is why we're staying at the morgue right now. And
Interesting.
somehow, after they were taken away by the police, they fell into the hands of a group of mortal hunters. Um,
Mortal
I
hunters?
believe that, yes, from well, um, one of the areas that they were at had been evacuated by the time Bishop Middlewaith and Winston and I arrived. I believe that the bishop and the scholar have also come across another location that this group is making use of, and mm, possibly may have gotten some more detailed information from one of the individuals they encountered there. But we are attempting to track down where they are being held so that we can inflict some enlightenment upon those who have taken them.
Yes. Well. Interesting. So it's not just the Vicar anymore that was taken.
No, that's two more now. Um, so forgive me, Brother Kruger. I think I had assumed that such news had already reached your ears, but there's
Hmm.
been so much going on. I guess it's not always easy to keep track of or be keep well informed of what's going on.
Yeah, so people have neglected it. And I suppose we don't have Sabbat news online where you can check all the latest developments in the sect.
Nor do we have a ghoul running around tossing newsletters on our Haven doorsteps every evening. So,
Yes, I would hope so. I'm doing my best to keep my haven secret.
out of curiosity, brother, how is your pack doing with this illness that is sweeping through? You have, aside from yourself and the bishop, there's another member of the 40K, correct? Cody? Or
Yes. Cody,
is he
yes.
is he suffering from the affliction as well?
I'm not sure. I
I'd
should look him up and check. Well, I can tell you that Bishop Bratos is doing his best to find a cure. Um, I have recently volunteered to offer up a few samples of my tissue, which he can examine. Was quite painful. He had to actually open up my chest and, well, I'd say mess around with my inner organs, but he wasn't exactly messing around. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yes, I've
And
provided some samples and tried to
yes,
test out
blood
some
samples.
theories as well. But I'd
It,
heard a
it was
rumor.
quite it was quite painful, but anything for the sect. If all it takes for me to serve the sect is to endure some pain, then well, I'll gladly do it. And if you want, you can now roll empathy against my subterfuge.
Sure, I will do that. I, I will roll my perception empathy first. I only got one success because of the silly one.
Okay, can you roll 8 dice for me?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure you're pretty good on that manipulation subterfuge. Oh, silly one. Before going difficulty 6, you had much more successes than me.
Yeah, 4 successes. Oh, it's very convincing, you know. Seth is already predisposed to believe Kruger because he's his path mentor. He's been priest
And,
longer than anyone else in the city,
and my
and
vinculum puts extra oomph behind everything you say, so.
yes. So Seth does not for one moment doubt in Kruger's words that he'd gladly endure that kind of pain for the sect.
Though, since that's slightly contrary to what we were speaking earlier, in my mind I'm thinking you're probably a bit of a masochist and volunteered it just to endure the pain. So, but Seth will continue saying that the reason he asks about Cody is I've heard a rumor that the affliction seems to be targeting priests and bishops, and others that have been exposed have not contracted. As out of the bastards, despite a couple of different Valkyries that have given them exposure, only Bitta and the professor have contracted the affliction.
Hmm, interesting. These Volderies, they included Peter and the professor?
Yes, it was before the suggestion not to do the Volderies. But it was after. our quorum and before the sudden outbreak.
Hmm. Interesting.
But
Interesting.
anyhow, so that's why I was curious if your non-holy member of your pack that was exposed happened to contract it or not.
I will have to seek out Cody and double check that.
Excellent. Well, I was meaning to follow up with Professor Kashrimi on the subject, so now I have another reason to
Yeah.
seek him out.
And his bookshop is here in Norlock as well. Okay, out of character, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's the case.
I think it's somewhere in the area anyway, so, well, then I shall leave you to your meditations or whatever is going to take your attention this evening. And I will let you know how my efforts in following your suggestions this evening has leads.
Good. It's not a quick process transferring to a path. It takes time. Don't expect to be ready in a week.
No, I would. I think trying to jumpstart a path like that would be a sure ticket to Wasile. So,
It most likely would.
all right. Well,
And we've had
good night.
enough disturbances like that lately.
Yes, we
No,
don't
no.
need more.
Okay, I quick rewind. And we've had enough disturbances lately. Kruger does not say like that because he doesn't know for a fact that
Oh,
what the reason behind Keiki's outburst was.
no problem. I will agree with your, however you ended up wording it, I would agree with, because I do actually know. But, um, so I will excuse myself from Brother Kruger, and as I exit the building, I will again cloak myself with obscurity and make my way off into the night.
And Kruger walks over to his cloak, coat, puts on the coat, puts on the mask, the hat, and is off on his merry way. And we can
All
end
right,
the scene.
and we shall end the scene. So, thanks for watching. Good night.